The Pacific breeze carried salt and something else through the open doors of the Hotel del Coronado that afternoon. Something Emma couldn't name, but felt deep in her chest, like a warning she should have heeded. The lobby smelled of polished mahogany and fresh lilies, the kind of expensive scent that whispered promises of perfection, of beginnings written in gold ink. Her hand, still foreign with the weight of the wedding band, trembled slightly as Cole's fingers interlaced with hers. They'd been married exactly 47 hours. The dress still hung in protective plastic in the trunk of the car. Her mascara had run twice during the ceremony, once from joy, once from the way Cole had looked at her when he said, "I do," like she was the only solid thing in a world made of smoke. Emma's heels clicked against the terracotta tiles as they approached the front desk, each step echoing in the cathedral heights ceiling, adorned with crystal chandeliers that caught the amber light filtering through the Victorian windows. She could feel the weight of other guests' eyes, couples holding hands, families laughing, a single woman in the corner bar nursing what looked like her third martini, and watching them with something that might have been envy or might have been pity. Emma couldn't tell. Her mother had always said she couldn't read people properly, that she saw goodness where there was only performance. Cole squeezed her hand. "Presidential suite," he whispered against her ear, his breath warm and familiar. "Nothing but the best for Mrs. Hendricks." Mrs. Hendricks. The name still felt like borrowed. Clothes, beautiful but not quite broken in. Emma Carr had died 2 days ago in a church in San Diego, and Emma Hendricks had been born in her place, wrapped in white silk and promises that tasted like champagne and forever. Behind the reception desk stood Erin, 28 years old, with hair pulled back so tight it gave her a perpetual look of surprise. She'd worked at the Hotel del Coronado for 6 years, long enough to recognize the particular glow of honeymoon couples, that specific blend of exhaustion and euphoria that made them move through the world like they were underwater, slower and more deliberate than everyone else. Erin's own marriage had ended 3 years ago in her lawyer's office that smelled like stale coffee and defeat, so she'd learnt to smile at honeymoon couples with her mouth but not her eyes. Protect yourself, that's what her therapist said. Protect the soft parts. "Welcome to the Hotel del Coronado," Erin said, her customer service voice smooth as the mahogany counter between them. "Checking in?" "Hendricks," Cole said, pulling out his wallet. "Reservation for the presidential suite." Something flickered across Erin's face, so fast, Emma almost missed it. A micro-expression her mother would have caught immediately, would have filed away for later analysis. But Emma was too busy looking at Cole, at the way the afternoon light caught the silver in his temples. He was 43, 10 years older, which her father would have hated if her father was still alive to hate anything. At the small scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood accident he'd once described in such detail, she could almost see that 8-year-old version of him, bleeding and brave. Erin's fingers moved across the keyboard. Click, click, click. The sound suddenly too loud in Emma's ears. The Pacific breeze shifted, carrying with it the distant cry of seagulls and something else, that unnamed thing that made Emma's stomach tighten. Click, click, stop. Erin's face went blank. Not surprised blank, not confused blank. The kind of blank that comes when you see something impossible and your brain needs a moment to catch up with your eyes. "Is there a problem?" Cole asked, his voice still light, still honeymoon soft. Erin blinked 3 times in rapid succession. Just ... Just one moment, please. Her hand reached for the phone, fingers shaking slightly, a tremor Emma recognized from her own hands on her wedding day. From her hands, the morning she'd found out her father was gone. From her hands, every time life revealed itself to be something other than what she'd believed. Emma felt Cole's grip tighten around her hand, protective, or maybe nervous. She couldn't tell anymore. When did she stop being able to tell? A woman emerged from the back office, mid-30s, with sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes that assessed Carl and Emma in less than 3 seconds. Her name tag read Kara, assistant manager, in gold letters that caught the light. Kara moved with the efficiency of someone who'd spent years turning crises into quiet resolutions, who'd learned that the best way to handle disaster was with a smile and a firm handshake and an alternative solution already prepared. "Mr. and Mrs. Hendricks," Kara said, her voice honey over gravel. "Congratulations on your marriage. If you could just give us one moment. There seems to be a small ... discrepancy ... with your reservation." Discrepancy. The word hung in the air like smoke from a fire you can't yet see, but know is burning somewhere close. Emma's heart kicked against her ribs, once, twice, 3 times too fast. "What kind of discrepancy?" Cole's voice changed, the honey gone, the hardness underneath finally showing through. Kara glanced at Erin, then back at Cole. Her smile never wavered, but something behind her eyes shifted. "It appears that our system is showing a previous reservation under your name, Mr. Hendricks, for the presidential suite, dated 15 years ago." The lobby sounds, the gentle piano music from the bar, the murmur of conversation, the distant crash of waves against the shore, all seem to compress into a single high-pitched ringing in Emma's ears. 15 years ago, she would have been 14. Carl would have been ... 20 at 28, the same age Erin was now. The same age Emma's mother was when she'd married. Emma's father in a ceremony nobody talked about, because it had ended in a way nobody wanted to remember. "That's impossible," Colt said, but his hand had gone cold in Emma's grip, cold and slightly damp, the hand of someone whose body knew something his mouth wasn't ready to admit. "I assure you, sir, it's here in our records." Kara's fingers flew across the tablet she'd produced from seemingly nowhere. "Cola Hendricks, Presidential Suite, June 15th, 15 years ago." She paused, and Emma watched her throat work as she swallowed. "Registered as a wedding reservation." The world tilted, just slightly, just enough that Emma had to grip the mahogany counter to steady herself. The wood was cool and solid under her palm, real in a way nothing else felt in that moment. "Cole?" Emma's voice came out smaller than she intended, younger. The voice of 14-year-old Emma, who still believed her father when he said he'd come back, who still believed in promises made in dark bedrooms when the world was quiet and safe. "I don't know what they're talking about." Cole turned to her, his face the picture of bewildered innocence. But Emma had learned something in the 47 hours since becoming Mrs. Hendricks. She'd learned that. Cole's left eyebrow twitched, just barely, when he was processing something he didn't want to process. It was twitching now. "Emma, I swear to God, I've never been here before. This is some kind of mistake." Kara cleared her throat. "Mr. Hendricks, I understand this is ... unusual, but our records are quite thorough. Would you like to see the documentation?" "Yes." Emma heard herself say it before Cole could respond, her voice stronger now, louder. The voice of someone who'd spent 29 years watching her mother uncover her father's lies, who'd promised herself she'd never be that woman, standing in a kitchen at midnight, holding evidence of betrayal in shaking hands. "Show us." Erin produced a leather-bound registry from beneath the counter, the kind of thick, official-looking book that held history like a vault holds secrets. She opened it carefully, reverently, to a page marked with a purple ribbon. The paper was heavy, cream-colored, slightly yellowed at the edges. Emma could smell the age of it, must and time and other people's stories. There, in blue ink that had faded to something closer to gray, a signature, Cole R. Hendricks. The handwriting was unmistakably Cole's, those specific loops on the H, the way the K extended just slightly too far. Emma had seen him sign their marriage certificate 2 days ago, with those same loops, that same extension. Below it, another signature. Blurred, smudged, barely legible. Just an initial. Emma felt something crack inside her chest. A small fracture, like ice on a pond when the temperature shifts. She whispered. She whispered. E. For Emma. No. Cole's voice sharp now. Hard. No, Emma. I don't know what this is, but it's not. Not. What? Emma turned to him, really looked at him for the first time since they'd walked into the lobby. His face was pale, a thin sheen of sweat visible on his upper lip. His jaw clenched and unclenched. His hands, those hands that had held her so gently 47 hours ago, were balled into fists at his sides. Not you. Not your signature. It's my signature, but you don't remember getting married. Emma's voice rose and she saw other guests turning to look. The woman at the bar with her martini, a couple near the concierge desk, a family with 2 small children who suddenly seemed very interested in the scene unfolding at reception. Emma didn't care. Let them look. Let them see the honeymoon ending in real time, dying in the amber light of a California afternoon. I wasn't married, Cole said, but his voice had lost its conviction. Emma, please, you have to believe me. Believe him. That's what her mother had done. Believed and believed and believed until belief became a kind of blindness, until the truth finally crashed through their front door with the federal agents and the search warrants and the explanation that made her mother go so still, Emma thought she might never move again. Kara stepped closer, her voice dropping to that professional whisper reserved for disasters. Perhaps we should discuss this in my office, away from the lobby. But Emma couldn't move. Her legs had turned to water, to nothing. She stared at the signature Cole R. Hendricks, and below it, that blurred A. Was it her A, or someone else's? How many women had Cole Hendricks promised forever to? How many signatures existed in how many registries, in how many hotels along the California coast? Erin watched the scene unfold with a detached fascination, the kind born from seeing too many private moments become public spectacles. She'd witnessed proposal rejections, anniversary fights, the slow dissolution of 50-year marriages over who forgot to pack the medication. But this had a different quality. This felt like watching someone discover they'd been walking on a frozen lake, and the ice was thinner than they'd believed. The moment before the fall. The moment when you know but haven't yet accepted what you know. There's more, Kara said quietly, almost apologetically. The reservation. It was designated as a symbolic ceremony, not legally binding. The officiant listed is ... double quotes. She paused, her finger hovering over the tablet screen. Elliot Carr. The name punched through Emma's chest like a bullet, cold and clean and devastating. What did you say? Elliot Carr, listed as the officiant for the ceremony 15 years ago. The lobby spun, actually spun. Emma gripped the counter harder, her knuckles white against the dark wood. Elliot Carr, her father who'd disappeared when she was 14. Her father whose name she'd learned not to speak because it made her mother's face go grey and tight. Her father who'd left them with debt and questions and a house that smelled like abandonment. If you're still reading this story, wondering how Emma's world could fall apart so quickly, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and like this video. We share stories like these, real, raw, and impossible to look away from, because sometimes the truth is stranger and more devastating than anything we could imagine. Now, back to Emma's unraveling honeymoon. My father, Emma's voice barely audible. My father officiated a wedding for you. Cole's face had gone from pale to grey, the color of old concrete, of dead things. I didn't know your father. You didn't know my father. Emma repeated the words like she was trying to understand a foreign language. But he officiated your wedding 15 years ago. In this hotel. In the presidential suite where we're supposed to be honeymooning right now. The pieces were there, but they wouldn't fit together. Emma's brain scrambled to make sense of it. Her father, who'd been a financial advisor, who'd worn expensive suits and smelled like cologne and coffee, who'd had an office downtown with his name on the door. What would he have been doing, officiating weddings at the Hotel del Coronado? Why would Cole, who'd said they'd never met, who'd been introduced to Emma at a charity gala 6 months ago by mutual friends, have been here with her father? I think, Kara said, her voice careful and measured, that we should retrieve the full file from our archives. There may be more information that could ... clarify ... the situation. Get it? Emma's voice flat, dead. The voice of someone who'd already lost everything and was simply waiting to see exactly how much nothing was left. Kara nodded to Aaron, who disappeared into the back office. The silence that followed felt heavy, oppressive. Emma could hear Cole breathing beside her, quick, shallow breaths that suggested panic or guilt, or both. She didn't look at him. Couldn't. If she looked at him now, she might see something she couldn't unsee. And there was still a small part of her, the part that had said, "I do" 47 hours ago, that wanted to preserve the possibility of innocence. The ocean breeze shifted again, stronger now, carrying the scent of the coming evening. The light through the Victorian windows deepened from amber to gold to something darker, older. Emma thought about the presidential suite waiting for them upstairs. The champagne probably already chilling. The rose petals probably already scattered across the bed. The carefully planned romance of it all, now rotting in real time. Aaron returned carrying a manila folder, its edges worn soft with age. She placed it on the counter between them, like it was something dangerous, something that might explode if handled wrong. Kara opened it slowly, her eyes scanning the documents inside. Emma watched her face for clues, a frown, a widening of the eyes, anything to indicate what fresh horror awaited. "It appears," Kara began, then stopped, started again. "The ceremony 15 years ago was arranged through our events coordinator. The notes indicated was, let me read this exactly, a legal symbolic union for the purpose of inheritance qualification. The contract was signed by Cole R. Hendricks, and ... She looked up at Cole, then at Emma. Emily Thorne. Emily Thorne. Not Emma, not E4 Emma, someone else entirely. Emma felt a strange, disorienting relief wash through her, immediately followed by a new wave of confusion. Who is Emily Thorne? Cole's face had shifted again. Not guilty now, genuinely confused. I know that name. His voice distant, like he was reaching back through fog. Emily Thorne. She was... this was 15 years ago. She was a client. My firm handled estate planning and she needed... He stopped, his hand coming up to his face, pressing against his eyes. She needed to be married to qualify for an inheritance. Some archaic trust fund requirement. Her grandfather's will specified she had to be married by 25, or the money went to charity. So you married her. Emma's voice hollow. It wasn't real. It was a symbolic ceremony. Not legally binding, just ... paperwork. Theater for the lawyers. Cole grabbed Emma's shoulders, forcing her to look at him, his eyes desperate. Emma, I swear, it meant nothing. It was business. I was young. I needed the money. She paid me $10,000 to show up and sign some papers. We weren't even alone together. There were lawyers, and your father apparently, and a photographer for documentation. The whole thing took maybe an hour. Emma wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But belief had become a luxury she couldn't afford. Why didn't you tell me? I forgot. Cole's hands dropped from her shoulders. That sounds insane, but I swear, I completely forgot. It was 15 years ago. Meant nothing. It was before I met you. Before you married me in the exact same hotel suite where you fake married someone else. Emma's laugh came out sharp and bitter. What are the odds, Cole? What are the odds that of every hotel in California, you chose this one, this suite? You chose it. Cole's voice quiet. You said you'd always wanted to stay here. You showed me the pictures from the website, had she? Emma tried to remember. Yes, she had. She'd been scrolling through hotels, looking for something special, something romantic. The Hotel del Coronado had appeared on her screen like destiny, the Victorian architecture, the ocean views, the history. She'd said, "This is perfect. This is where I want to start our life together," and Cole had agreed. Had he agreed too quickly? Had there been something in his eyes she'd missed? "Your father," Kara said, pulling Emma's attention back. "Elliot Carr. According to our records, he was listed as an independent officiant, licensed through the state of California. My father wasn't an officiant." Emma's head pounding now. "He was a financial advisor. Perhaps he did both," Kara offered weakly. No. Her father couldn't have been officiating weddings. Could he? Emma's memories of him were already so fragmented, so colored by what came after, the discovery of his fraud, the money he'd stolen from clients, the investigation that had consumed her mother's life for years. What else hadn't Emma known about him? What else had he hidden behind his expensive suits and easy smile? Erin cleared her throat. "There's something else." She pointed to a note at the bottom of the contract, handwritten in red ink. Someone marked today's date here, June 17th, with a star next to it. The room temperature seemed to drop. Emma's skin broke out in goosebumps, despite the warmth of the California evening pressing through the open doors. Why would someone mark today's date on a 15-year-old contract? Carl's voice steady, but his hand shaking. Kara's professional composure finally cracked, just slightly, just enough that Emma saw genuine confusion flicker across her face. "I don't know, but someone knew. Someone had looked at this contract, maybe yesterday, maybe a week ago, maybe years ago in preparation, and marked today's date, marked it with a star, like an anniversary, like something important, like something planned." Emma's mind raced. Today was their honeymoon. Their reservation had been made 6 weeks ago, right after Cole proposed. Standard lead time for a hotel like this. But if someone had access to the reservation system, if someone knew they were coming, who made our reservation? Emma asked. Kara checked the tablet. "It shows here that it was made online through our website." "Check deeper. Who processed it? Who confirmed it?" Kara's fingers moved across the screen, her frown deepening. It was ... manually adjusted, moved from a standard room to the presidential suite. The adjustment was made by ... She looked up, her face unreadable. "By me." The lobby went silent. Even the piano music seemed to fade into nothing. Emma stared at Kara, at this woman she'd never met before. This stranger with sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes. This person who'd just admitted to manipulating their reservation. "You moved us to the presidential suite." Cole's voice dangerous now. "Why?" I don't remember doing that." Kara's professional mask shattered completely. She looked at the tablet like it was lying to her. "I process dozens of reservations every day. I don't remember this specifically." "Then why did you do it?" Emma demanded. "I don't know." Kara's voice small, frightened, the voice of someone who'd just realized they were part of something they didn't understand. Erin watched the exchange with growing unease. She'd worked with Kara for 3 years and had never seen her look like this, uncertain, rattled. Kara was the person who fixed problems, who maintained control. But right now, she looked like a woman staring at evidence of her own actions and not recognizing herself. The Pacific wind picked up, howling through the open lobby doors. The crystal chandeliers swayed slightly, casting moving shadows across the terracotta floor. Emma felt dizzy, unmoored, like the ground beneath her feet was shifting. Nothing made sense. Her father officiating Cole's fake wedding happening in the same hotel, the same suite where they'd planned their honeymoon. Someone marking today's date on a 15-year-old contract. Kara upgrading their room without remembering why. This isn't random, Emma said slowly, the words forming as she thought them. Someone planned this. Someone wanted us here, in this suite, today. Cole's face hardened. Who? Who would do that? Emma's mind went to the obvious answer. Emily Thorne, the fake bride from 15 years ago. Maybe she'd found out about Emma and Cole's engagement. Maybe she'd never gotten over Cole, despite the arrangements being purely business. Maybe she'd orchestrated this entire scenario to destroy their honeymoon, to expose Cole's past, but that didn't make sense. Why involve Elliot Carr's name? Why make sure Emma saw that her father had been part of this? Unless this wasn't about Cole at all. Emma's stomach dropped. This is about my father. Everyone turned to look at her. Kara, Aaron, Cole, even the couple near the concierge desk, who'd been pretending not to listen. What do you mean? Cole asked. My father disappeared 15 years ago. The same year he apparently officiated your fake wedding. The same year he ... Emma's voice cracked. She forced herself to continue. The same year the fraud investigation started. The same year everything fell apart. She saw it now, like a photograph developing in solution, the image becoming clearer with each second. Her father had been involved in something at this hotel. Something connected to Cole's fake marriage ceremony. Something connected to Emily Thorne's inheritance. And whatever he'd done, whatever scheme or fraud or crime he'd committed, someone remembered. Someone hadn't forgotten. And they'd brought Emma here, on her honeymoon, to make sure she remembered too. We need to go to the suite, Emma said. What? Cole looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Emma, no. We should leave. We should get out of here and figure out what. No. Emma's voice iron. Someone went to a lot of trouble to get us into that suite. I want to know why. Kara hesitated. Mrs. Hendricks, I'm not sure that's... Give me the key. Emma held out her hand. It's my honeymoon. It's my reservation. Give me the key. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Kara reached beneath the counter and produced 2 key cards in a small envelope embossed with gold letters. Presidential Suite. Emma took them, her hand steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. She turned to Cole. Are you coming? He studied her face. This woman he'd married 47 hours ago. This woman he'd thought he knew. Then he nodded. I'm coming. They walked toward the elevators, leaving Kara and Aaron at the reception desk. Emma could feel their eyes following her, could imagine the conversation they'd have the moment the elevator doors closed. She didn't care. She'd stopped caring about what people thought the day the federal agents came to her house, the day she learned that shame wasn't something you could hide from or outrun. It lived in your bones. It became part of your name. The elevator was empty, just Emma and Carl, and the soft, classical music playing through hidden speakers. They rode in silence to the 4th floor, the highest floor, where the presidential suite occupied the entire northern corner of the hotel. The hallway was quiet, plush carpet absorbing their footsteps. Paintings of the hotel's history lined the walls, Victorian ladies with parasols, men in white suits, champagne toasts on sun-drenched terraces. Emma stopped in front of Suite 4001. The door was dark mahogany, heavier than normal hotel doors, with a brass plaque that read, Presidential Suite, established 1888. Her hands shook as she slid the key card into the lock. The mechanism clicked. Green light. The door swung open. The suite was enormous, larger than Emma's first apartment, larger than the house she'd grown up in before everything collapsed. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the Pacific, the ocean dark blue and restless under the lowering sun. The furniture was period-appropriate Victorian, heavy drapes, antique writing desk, sitting area with velvet couches, and the bedroom, visible through an open doorway, dominated by a massive 4-poster bed with white linens and, yes, rose petals scattered across the duvet. The romance someone had prepared for them, now grotesque in its obliviousness. But Emma didn't look at the bed. She looked at the walls, at the paintings, at the bookshelf filled with leather-bound volumes, at the antique mirror hanging above the fireplace, at every surface, every corner, searching for what? Evidence, answers, some explanation for why she was here, in this room, on what should have been the happiest weekend of her life. Cole stood in the doorway, not entering. "Emma, please, let's just go. We can get our things and leave and look around," Emma said. "Help me look." "For what?" "I don't know. Anything. Everything." They searched. Emma pulled books from shelves, checked behind paintings, ran her hands along the wainscoting looking for hidden panels. Cole checked the desk, drawers, the closets, the bathroom. Nothing. Just a beautiful suite full of beautiful things that revealed nothing. Emma sank onto the velvet couch, exhausted. The sun was setting now, orange and pink light flooding through the windows, turning the suite into something from a dream, or a nightmare. She couldn't tell anymore. Cole sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. "Emma, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't remember. I should have." "The mirror," Emma said. "What?" Emma stood, walking to the fireplace. Above it hung an ornate Victorian mirror in a gilded frame, the glass slightly warped with age. She'd noticed it when they first entered, but dismissed it as decoration. Now, looking at it more carefully, she saw something. The frame wasn't quite flush with the wall. There was a gap, barely visible but there. She reached up, her fingers finding purchase on the frame's edge. She pulled. The mirror swung outward on hidden hinges, revealing a shallow space behind it, the kind Victorian hotels used for hiding valuables or storing documents away from prying eyes. Inside the space, a single photograph, old, faded, the colors slightly off in that way. Photographs from 15 years ago always looked too saturated, too bright. Emma lifted it out carefully, her hands steady now. Steady the way they got when the worst had already happened and you were simply documenting the aftermath. The photograph showed two men. One was young, late 20s, brown hair, expensive suit, handsome in that confident way. Young men with money were always handsome. It took Emma a moment to recognize him. Cole, 15 years younger, but unmistakably Cole. The other man was older, mid-40s, graying at the temples, glasses, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Emma's breath caught. She knew that face, had known it her entire childhood, had looked for it in crowds long after he'd had disappeared, hoping against hope that maybe he'd come back, maybe he'd explain, maybe he'd make it right. Her father, Elliot Carr. They stood together in what looked like this very sweet, arms around each other's shoulders like old friends. Between them, held up for the camera, an envelope, thick, bulging, the kind that held money, or documents, or secrets too dangerous to send through regular channels. And on the envelope, written in red ink, the same red ink that had marked today's date on the contract, a single word, insurance. Emma's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the floor, the photograph clutched in her hand. Carl was beside her instantly, trying to take the photo, but she held it away from him. "You knew him," Emma whispered. "You knew my father." "I told you I didn't." Cole stopped, looked at the photograph. His face went white. "Oh God, what?" Emma's voice sharp. "What is it?" "I remember now." Cole's voice hollow. "Not the wedding, but him, Elliot. He was the one who approached me about the ceremony. He said it was for a client, that it was all legal and above board. He paid me, cash, $10,000 in an envelope, exactly like that one in the photo." Emma stared at the photograph, at her father's fake smile, at young Cole's naive confidence, at the envelope between them labeled insurance. Her mind raced, connecting pieces that didn't want to connect. My father paid you to fake marry Emily Thorne. Yes, so she could get her inheritance. Yes, but why? Why would he care about Emily Thorne's inheritance? Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then quietly, because he was stealing it. The words hung in the air like smoke. Emma felt them settle into her lungs, her bloodstream, her bones. Of course her father had been stealing it. That's what he did. That's what he'd always done. He'd stolen from clients, from friends, from people who trusted him. Why not from Emily Thorne too? The symbolic ceremony wasn't to help her get the inheritance, Emma said slowly, understanding crystallizing. It was to give my father access to the trust. He needed a marriage certificate, a wedding officiant, documentation that would pass legal scrutiny. So he created it all, used your name, used his credentials, made it look legitimate enough that the lawyers would release the money, and then he disappeared, Cole finished, before anyone realized it was fraud. Emma looked at the photograph again, at the envelope labeled insurance. What was it insurance for? Against what? Against whom? A sound from the doorway made them both turn. Kara stood there, her face pale in the dying light. Emma hadn't heard the door open, hadn't heard footsteps. How long had Kara been standing there? How much had she heard? I think, Kara said, her voice strange and distant, that it's time I told you the truth about why you're really here. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs as Kara stepped fully into the suite, closing the door behind her with a quiet click that sounded like a lock turning, like a trap springing shut. The assistant manager no longer wore her professional mask, the careful smile, the corporate politeness. Her face was raw now, stripped of pretense. And what remained underneath was something Emma recognized immediately, because she'd seen it in her own mirror for years. Rage. The kind that lived in your marrow. The kind that kept you awake at 3 in the morning, replaying conversations, imagining justice, planning revenge. You want to know why you're here. Kara's voice low, controlled, but underneath it, Emma heard the tremor of emotion barely contained. You're here because 15 years ago, your father destroyed mine. The ocean wind rattled the windows. The sunset had deepened to blood orange, casting long shadows across the Victorian furniture. Emma stood slowly, the photograph still clutched in her hand. Cole remained on the floor, his face a mask of confusion and dawning horror. What are you talking about? Emma's voice steadier than she felt. I don't know your father. I don't know you. Kara laughed short, bitter, empty of humor. No, you wouldn't. Why would Emma Carr know about the people her father destroyed? Why would the daughter of Elliot Carr ever think about the families left behind in the wreckage? Emma flinched like she'd been slapped. She'd thought about them. God, she'd thought about nothing else for years. The clients her father had defrauded, the retirement funds he'd emptied, the college savings he'd stolen, the families, how many families, whose lives had been ruined because Elliot Carr had a gambling problem and a cocaine habit and a talent for making lies sound like truth. Emma had thought about them so much, she'd changed her name in college, gone by her mother's maiden name, Morrison, for 2 years until the shame of hiding felt worse than the shame of the name itself. Tell me, Emma said quietly. Tell me what he did. Kara moved to the windows, staring out at the Pacific. The dying light caught the sharp angles of her face, making her look older, harder. My father was Thomas Winters. Does that name mean anything to you? Emma searched her memory. Thomas Winters. The name familiar but distant, like something she'd heard in a dream once and forgotten upon waking. I don't... double quotes. No, you wouldn't remember. Kara's hands pressed flat against the glass, as if she could push through it and fall into the ocean below. You were 14, busy being a teenager. Busy, not knowing that your father was stealing millions from his clients. Thomas Winters. Thomas Winters. Emma closed her eyes, reaching back through the fog of trauma and time. Then it hit her, a memory surfacing like a body in water. The man at their front door, late, maybe 10 o'clock at night. Emma had been doing homework in her room, heard raised voices, had crept to the top of the stairs to listen. A man's voice, desperate and broken. "You promised me that money was safe. You promised Elliot. That was everything. That was my daughter's future. How could you? How could you?" Her father's voice, smooth even then. "Tom, you need to calm down. There's been a mistake, but we can fix it. Just give me time. Give me a few weeks and I'll—" "You don't have a few weeks. I needed that money for her surgery. She needs a kidney transplant, and without that money she's on a waiting list that could take years." Emma opened her eyes, looked at Kara, really looked, and saw it, the scar, barely visible under the collar of Kara's blouse, the kind of scar that came from major surgery, from something life-threatening, from something that left marks on your body and your soul. "You needed a kidney," Emma whispered. Kara turned from the window. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell. "I was 19, polycystic kidney disease, both kidneys failing. My father had saved for years $150,000 in a trust fund, managed by the brilliant Elliot Carr, financial advisor to the stars." Her voice dripped venom. "Except when we needed it. When the transplant opportunity came, and we had maybe 72 hours to raise the money, the account was empty, completely empty." Emma's legs felt weak. She gripped the mantel above the fireplace for support. "My father took it. Your father invested it." Kara's laugh sharp enough to cut. "That's what he told us. Invested in a guaranteed opportunity. A real estate deal in Mexico that would triple our money. Except there was no deal. No property. No investment. Just your father and his debts and his addictions and his need for more. Always more." Cole finally stood, his voice cautious. "But you're alive. You had the transplant." Kara's face twisted. "Yes, I had the transplant. Because my father begged. Because he borrowed from loan sharks, who charged interest rates that would make the mafia blush. Because he took out a second mortgage on our house, maxed out every credit card, sold his car, his mother's jewelry, everything. He got me the money, barely, with less than 12 hours to spare." "But you survived," Cole said. "I survived." Kara's voice flat. "My father didn't. The debt destroyed him. The stress, the shame, the knowledge that he'd trusted a man who'd stolen from his dying daughter. 2 years later, he had a heart attack at work. Massive, fatal. He was 49 years old. The suite felt airless. Emma couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This was her legacy. Not just the fraud, not just the stolen money, but the bodies left behind. The casualties of Elliot Carr's greed. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered, the words pathetically inadequate. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to know." Kara's voice cut like glass. "It's easier that way, isn't it? To tell yourself your father was flawed, but not evil. To tell yourself he made mistakes, but didn't destroy lives. To move on. To get married. To book a honeymoon at the Hotel del Coronado, and not even recognize the place where your father committed one of his many frauds." Emma's mind reeled. What does this have to do with Emily Thorne? With Cole's fake wedding? Kara smiled, cold, triumphant, terrifying in its satisfaction. "Everything. Because Emily Thorne's inheritance, the $2 million your father helped her access through that sham ceremony, that money didn't go to Emily Thorne. Most of it anyway. Your father skimmed. He always skimmed. And part of what he skimmed was my father's trust fund money. He used my father's $150,000 to set up the fake wedding, to pay off the lawyers, to make everything look legitimate. Then he took Emily's $2 million and disappeared." The photograph in Emma's hand felt heavy as lead. She looked at it again, her father and Cole, the envelope between them. "Insurance. What kind of insurance?" "But Emily got her money," Cole said slowly. The trust fund paid out. I know because I was there when the lawyers confirmed it. I saw the documentation. The trust fund paid out, Kara agreed. But $2 million went in, and only $1.2 million came out to Emily. Your father took $800,000 and vanished. Emily never even knew. She was 25, naive, so grateful to get any money at all that she didn't question the lawyer fees, the processing costs, the various deductions your father invented. Emma felt sick, physically sick. Her stomach churned, and for a moment she thought she might vomit right there on the antique Persian rug. How do you know all this? Because I spent 15 years looking into it. Kara's voice matter of fact now, the rage giving way to something colder calculation. 15 years investigating your father, following every transaction, every victim, every lie. I became a forensic accountant, specifically to understand what he did, to map his crimes, to find proof. And did you? Emma's throat dry. Find proof. Kara pulled something from her pocket, a key, old-fashioned, brass, the kind that opened locks from a different era. There's a safe in this suite, original to the hotel, installed in 1888 when the hotel was built. It's in the bedroom, behind a panel in the closet. Most people don't even know it exists. Emma looked at Cole, then back at Kara. What's in it? Everything. Kara held up the key, letting it catch the dying light. Your father was paranoid. Brilliant but paranoid. He knew his crimes would eventually catch up with him, so he kept insurance, documentation, proof of everything he did, everyone he paid off, every fraud he committed. He hid it in that safe 15 years ago, the night of Cole's fake wedding. I found references to it in his office files after your mother sold his things. It took me 8 years to get a job here at the hotel, 3 more years to work my way up to assistant manager, 2 more years to gain access to the presidential suite regularly enough to search. And finally, 6 months ago, I found it, the safe, but I couldn't open it. It needs a specific key, one your father kept with him, one I couldn't find. Emma's heart pounded. So what's the key you're holding? Kara's smile sharpened. A replica, made from photographs I found in the historical archives. It took 4 tries to get it right, but 3 days ago, it finally worked. The safe opened, and inside, ... double quotes. She paused, letting the moment stretch. Inside was everything. Confessions, bank records, names, dates, proof of every crime Elliot Carr committed, including the Emily Thorne fraud, including the theft from my father, including dozens of other victims nobody even knows about. The room spun. Emma grabbed the mantel harder, her knuckles white. If you have proof, why not go to the police? Why bring me here? Why this elaborate setup? Because proof doesn't matter if it's obtained illegally. Kara's voice cold, clinical. I don't work for the FBI. I don't have a warrant. Anything I take from that safe is inadmissible. Fruit of the poisonous tree. Your father's victims would never see justice. Emma understood now. The manipulation of the reservation, the upgrade to the presidential suite, the marking of today's date on the 15-year-old contract. You wanted me to find it. Yes. Kara stepped closer, her eyes intense. You're Elliot Carr's daughter, his next of kin. If you discover the safe, if you open it and retrieve the documents, if you voluntarily turn them over to the authorities, that's legal. That's admissible. That's justice. So you brought me here on my honeymoon. Emma's voice hollow with disbelief. You destroyed what should have been the happiest weekend of my life. You made me question my marriage, doubt my husband, relive my father's crimes. All so I could do your dirty work. Yes, no apology in Kara's voice, no regret, just flatter honesty. Emma's hands trembled with rage, with grief, with a cocktail of emotions so complex she couldn't name them all. Part of her wanted to scream at Kara, to throw the photograph at her face, to refuse. to walk out of this sweet and just hotel and pretend she'd never heard any of it. But another part of her, the part that had lived for 15 years under the weight of her father's sins, the part that had changed her name and avoided certain streets, and wondered every day how many people hated her by association, that part knew Kara was right. The victims deserved justice. Thomas Winters deserved justice. His daughter, standing before Emma now with scar tissue and rage and 15 years of grief, deserved justice. "Show me," Emma said quietly. "Show me the safe." Kara nodded. She walked to the bedroom, Emma and Cole following. The four-poster bed loomed large. The rose petals scattered across white linens, suddenly obscene, a celebration in a room that had become a crime scene, a confessional, a reckoning. Kara opened the closet, large enough to be a small room itself, lined with mahogany and brass fixtures. She pushed aside hanging robes and pressed against the back wall. A panel shifted, revealing a hidden space barely large enough for a person to crawl into. And there, mounted in the wall, an antique safe. Heavy iron, combination lock on top, keyhole below. The kind of safe that had protected valuables for over a century. Kara inserted the brass key, turned it. The lock mechanism clicked, a sound that felt final, irrevocable. She pulled the heavy door open. Inside, an envelope, thick, manila. The same kind Emma had seen in the photograph her father had held with Cole 15 years ago. Kara reached in carefully, reverently, and pulled it out. She held it for a moment, as if weighing it, measuring its significance. Then she handed it to Emma. "This is your inheritance," Kara said. "Not money, not property. The truth." Emma's hands shook as she took the envelope. It was heavier than she'd expected. She could feel the bulk of papers inside, documents, photographs, evidence, her father's confession, his insurance policy against what? Being forgotten, being forgiven, or perhaps against the possibility that his daughter might one day need to understand exactly what kind of man he'd been. She opened the envelope slowly. The first document was a letter, handwritten in her father's distinctive scrawl-loose, confident, the writing of a man who'd never doubted himself, even when he should have. "To whom it may concern, but especially to my Emma. If you're reading this, if you found this, I'm probably dead, or in prison, or living under a name you'll never find in a country with no extradition treaty. Either way, I'm gone, and you're left holding the bag. I'm sorry for that. I really am. You were always the best part of me, the only part worth saving. What follows is a complete accounting of my activities from 2004 to 2010. Every fraud, every theft, every lie. I kept these records because I'm not stupid. I knew eventually someone would come looking, and I wanted leverage. But I also kept them because I hoped, maybe, that someday I could make it right, that I could return the money, face the consequences, earn forgiveness. I never got the chance. Or maybe I never took the chance. Same difference in the end. Emma, baby girl, if you're reading this, you're not responsible for my sins, but you might be the only person who can make them right. Use these documents, turn them in, help the people I hurt, be better than I was. That shouldn't be hard. The bar is pretty low. I loved you. I still love you, wherever I am. That was real, even if almost nothing else about me was. Your father, Elliot Carr. Emma's vision blurred. Tears, hot, angry, confused, spilled down her cheeks. She'd spent 15 years hating her father, mourning him, trying to understand him. And here, in his own words, was an admission that felt like a knife to the chest and a balm at the same time. He'd known what he was, he'd known what he'd done, and in some twisted way, he'd tried to prepare for the possibility that his daughter might want to fix it. Behind the letter, more documents. Bank statements showing transfers from client accounts to offshore accounts in the Caymans, in Switzerland, in Palomar, copies of forged documents, photographs of meetings with people Emma didn't recognize, lawyers, accountants, facilitators of fraud, and there, buried in the middle, a complete breakdown of the Emily Thorne inheritance fraud. How much had gone where, how much Elliot had taken, and Dama's breath caught a separate ledger showing where he'd gotten the initial capital. Thomas Winter's Trust Fund, $150,000, transferred to an account labeled E.T. Wedding Fund. Emma looked up at Kara, who was watching her with an expression Emma couldn't quite read, satisfaction, mixed with sadness, mixed with something else, vindication maybe, or just exhaustion. "I'm going to turn these in," Emma said, her voice steady now, clear, all of it, everything. "That means your father's name gets dragged through the mud again," Kara said. "Your name too, by association. The media will have a field day. Daughter of fraudster reveals father's crimes. It won't be easy. It was never going to be easy." Emma looked at Cole, who stood in the bedroom doorway looking shell-shocked and lost. "My father ruined your father. He ruined dozens of people. They deserve to know the truth. They deserve restitution, if there's any money left to recover. They deserve ... M. Bulls, she paused, searching for the word. "They deserve to have their pain acknowledged." Kara's face softened, just slightly, just enough that Emma saw the grief underneath the rage, the little girl who'd needed a kidney and whose father had trusted the wrong man. "Thank you," Kara whispered. At that exact moment, the lights went out, complete darkness, so sudden and total that Emma gasped, her hands instinctively clutching the envelope tighter. The hum of the air conditioning died. The glow of the clock radio on the nightstand disappeared. Even the ambient light from the city outside seemed to dim, as if the entire hotel had been swallowed by night. "What the hell?" Cole's voice in the darkness. "Power outage," Kara said, her voice calm despite the circumstances. "The coastal grid does this sometimes. Usually comes back in a few minutes." But Emma felt something else in the darkness. A presence, a weight, the sense that they weren't alone. She heard it before she saw it. Footsteps, light, careful, coming from the suite's main room. "Someone's here," Emma whispered. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice, female, unfamiliar. "Well, this is cozy." Everyone gathered in the dark to discuss old crimes. A beam of light, a flashlight, cut through the blackness. It swept across the bedroom, illuminating Cole's face, pale, frightened, then Kara's alert, tense, then finally landing on Emma. She squinted against the brightness, trying to see who held it. The woman stepped into view. Late 40s, platinum blonde hair, expensive clothes, a face that might have been beautiful once, but had been hardened by something: time, disappointment, rage. Emma didn't recognize her, but she saw Kara stiffen, saw fear flash across her face for the first time since this nightmare had begun. "Hello, Kara," the woman said. "Long time." "Emily." Kara's voice barely audible. "Emily. Emily Thorne, the fake bride from 15 years ago. The woman whose inheritance Elliot Carr had stolen. The ghost haunting this entire nightmare." Emily smiled, cold, predatory, sharp, surprised. "I've been watching the hotel reservation system for years, waiting for exactly this scenario, waiting for Kara to make her move. I knew eventually she'd try to use that safe. I knew she'd need a car to do it legally." She turned the flashlight on Emma. "I just didn't know it would be you, Elliot's daughter, the innocent victim." Her laugh bitter. "There are no innocent victims in this story, sweetheart. Only different degrees of guilty." Emma's heart hammered. "What do you want? What do I want?" Emily stepped closer and Emma saw she was holding something in her other hand. Not a weapon. A folder. Another goddamn folder. "I want what's owed to me. What your father stole from me 15 years ago. You got your inheritance," Kara said. $1.2 million. "You got most of it. Most of it." Emily's voice acidic. $800,000 disappeared. $800,000, that should have been mine. That was owed to me. That I earned by being born into a family that only valued women if we married by 25, like good little Victorian brides. She shook her head. Your father promised me all of it. He said the ceremony would cost maybe $50,000 in legal fees, administrative costs. Not $800,000. Emma found her voice. So you've been planning ... What? Revenge. It's not revenge. Recovery. Emily held up her folder. I hired investigators. Forensic accountants, not as good as Kara here, but competent. They traced where Elliot put the money. Offshore accounts, yes, but also investments, real estate, stock portfolios. And I found something interesting. She pulled a document from the folder, handed it to Emma. Emma held it in the dim light from Emily's flashlight. It was a property deed for a house in Sedona, Arizona, purchased in 2010, the same year Emma's father had disappeared, for $650,000. Registered to a corporation, Emma C. Holdings. Emma's breath caught. Emma C., my initials. Your father bought you a house, Emily said, with my money. Probably figured one day you'd inherit it, and it would be his way of making amends. Taking care of you from beyond the grave or prison, or whatever hole he crawled into. Emma stared at the deed. Her father had bought her a house she'd never known about, a house purchased with stolen money. She owned property bought with Emily Thorne's inheritance and Thomas Winter's trust fund, and God knew how many other people's life savings. I want that house, Emily said flatly. It's worth at least $1 million now. Sedona real estate has appreciated significantly. Sign it over to me, and we can all walk away from this mess. You keep the documents in that envelope, turn them over to the authorities, play the hero. I get my house. Kara gets her justice. Everyone wins. Except the other victims, Cole said quietly. He'd been so silent, Emma had almost forgotten he was there. What about Thomas Winters? What about the dozens of other people Elliot Carr stole from? The deed to one house doesn't fix everything. Emily shrugged. Not my problem. I'm a victim too. I'm just smart enough to get mine back. Emma looked at the deed, then at the envelope full of her father's confessions, then at Kara, standing pale and tense in the darkness, then at Cole, her husband of 47 hours, who'd somehow become entangled in a crime committed before they'd even met, and she made a decision. No, Emma said. No. Emily's flashlight beam intensified, like her anger was channeling through it. No. The house, if I even legally own it, which I doubt since it was purchased with stolen money, goes into the restitution fund. All of it. Every asset my father acquired through fraud gets liquidated and distributed to his victims, including you. Emma held up the envelope. These documents prove everything. They'll prove where the money went, who deserves compensation, how much. A judge can sort it out, a court can decide. Not us. Not in the dark in a hotel room, you stupid girl. Emily's voice dropped to something dangerous. You think the courts will be fair? You think justice actually works? I've been fighting for 15 years to get back what your father took. I'm not waiting anymore. She lunged forward, reaching for the envelope. Kara moved faster, stepping between Emily and Emma. The two women collided, Kara taller, but Emily desperate. The flashlight fell, rolling across the floor, casting wild shadows across the walls. Emma heard grunting, the sound of bodies hitting furniture, something breakable shattering. Carl grabbed Emma's arm. We need to go, now. But Emma couldn't move. She stood frozen, watching Kara and Emily struggle in the near darkness, lit only by the flashlight's erratic beam. She thought about her father, about the man who'd tucked her in at night and taught her to ride a bike and bought her a house with stolen money, about the man who'd known exactly what he was doing when he destroyed Thomas Winters, when he stole from Emily Thorne, when he built a life on lies and left his daughter to clean up the wreckage. The lights flickered, once, twice, then blazed back to life, flooding the suite with sudden brightness that felt like an assault after the darkness. Emma blinked, adjusting, and saw Kara and Emily frozen in the middle of the bedroom. Kara had Emily's wrist in her grip. Emily had her other hand tangled in Kara's hair. Both women breathing hard, staring at each other with mutual hatred and something else, recognition, maybe, of being two sides of the same coin. Two victims of the same man, fighting over scraps. Enough. Emma's voice cut through the tension. Both women turned to look at her. This ends now. Emily, you're right. You deserve compensation. Kara, you're right too. The victims deserve justice. And I. She paused, feeling the weight of her name, her inheritance, her responsibility. I need to do what my father should have done 15 years ago. Tell the truth. She walked past them, past Cole, back to the main room of the suite. Her hands shaking, but her purpose clear. She pulled out her phone, dialed 911. I need to report a crime, she said when the operator answered. Multiple crimes, fraud, theft, embezzlement. I have evidence. Documentation. I'm at the Hotel del Coronado, Presidential Suite. She paused. And I need you to contact the FBI. This is going to take more than local police. Behind her, she heard Emily curse, heard Kara let out a long, shuddering breath, heard Cole whisper, Emma, are you sure? She wasn't sure. Not about anything except that carrying her father's secrets had nearly killed her mother, had poisoned her own life, had prevented healing for everyone he'd hurt, and she was done. Done hiding, done pretending, done letting Elliot Carr's choices dictate her present. I'm sure, she said. The next hours passed in a blur. Police arrived, first local, professional, taking statements. Then FBI agents, two men in dark suits, who looked at the envelope of documents like it was Christmas morning. They photographed everything, documented everything, asked 1,000 questions. Emma answered them all. Yes, this was her father's handwriting. Yes, she'd had no knowledge of the safe until tonight. Yes, she wanted to cooperate fully. Yes, she understood this would mean publicity, scrutiny, potential legal complications regarding the Sedona property and any other assets connected to the fraud. Kara gave her statement with clinical precision, explaining her investigation, her role in bringing Emma to the hotel, her manipulation of the reservation. The FBI agent raised an eyebrow, but didn't arrest her technically. She'd committed no crime beyond creative hotel management. Emily tried to leave twice, was stopped both times. Eventually, she sat in one of the velvet chairs, arms crossed, face hard, and answered questions with the minimum possible words. Emma almost felt sorry for her, almost, but then she remembered that Emily had been willing to fight, to grab, to take, just like Elliot Carr had. The cycle continuing. Cole sat beside Emma through all of it, his hand in hers, steady, present. When the FBI agents finally left, around 2 in the morning, carrying the envelope and the deed and pages of notes, the suite felt hollow, empty. The rose petals still scattered on the bed, the champagne still chilling somewhere, the carefully planned romance completely obliterated by reality. Some honeymoon, Cole said quietly. Emma laughed, surprising herself with the sound. It came out broken and slightly hysterical. Yeah, some honeymoon. What happens now? I don't know. Emma looked around the suite at the open safe, at the space behind the mirror where the photograph had hidden, at the beautiful Victorian furniture that had witnessed a century of secrets. I guess we'd figure it out. Together? Cole squeezed her hand. Together. They didn't sleep in the presidential suite that night. Couldn't. The room felt contaminated somehow, heavy with history. Instead, they checked into a regular room on the second floor. Small, basic, anonymous. Emma fell asleep in Cole's arms as the first light of dawn crept through the curtains. exhausted and devastated, and somehow, impossibly, lighter than she'd felt in 15 years. The story broke 3 days later. Daughter of fugitive fraudster reveals father's crimes. The news outlets had a field day, exactly as Kara had predicted. Emma's face was everywhere on TV, in newspapers, across social media. People had opinions. So many opinions. Some called her brave. Some called her publicity-seeking. Some called her complicit. Emma stopped reading the comments after the first day. The FBI investigation moved fast. Within 2 weeks, they'd frozen multiple accounts, recovered nearly $2.3 million in assets connected to Elliot Carr's frauds, and identified 47 victims. Thomas Winter's family was on the list. So was Emily Thorne. So were people Emma had never heard of: a retired teacher in Oregon, a small business owner in Nevada, a young couple who'd lost their down payment on their first house. Emma met with the FBI's Victims Services Coordinator and made a formal statement that she wanted no claim to any recovered assets. Everything, the Sedona house, the offshore accounts, any investments, should go to restitution. She wanted nothing that came from her father's crimes. Her mother called for the first time in 6 months. They talked for 3 hours, cried for most of it, made a plan to meet for lunch next week. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Kara sent Emma a text message exactly 3 weeks after that night. "Thank you. My father can rest now." Emma typed and deleted 4 responses before settling on, "I hope you can too." Emily Thorne disappeared after giving her FBI statement. Rumor was she'd moved to Europe, that she'd received a substantial settlement from the restitution fund, that she'd finally let go of the rage that had consumed her for 15 years. Emma hoped it was true. She hoped Emily found peace. She hoped all of them could. 2 months after the honeymoon that ended at the front desk, Emma and Cole returned to the Hotel del Coronado, not to the presidential suite that would always be tainted now, but to the beach. They walked along the sand, shoes off, the Pacific wind whipping Emma's hair across her face. The hotel loomed behind them, grand and Victorian and full of secrets it would never tell. "I've been thinking," Cole said, stopping to pick up a shell, "about getting married." Emma laughed. "We are married, I know. But the ceremony, it was before all this. Before everything fell apart and came back together. I want to do it again." He turned to face her, the sunset painting him in gold and amber. "Nothing fancy. Maybe just us and an efficient we actually trust. New vows, new promises. A real beginning." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Good tears this time. Healing tears. "Are you proposing to your own wife?" "I'm proposing a do-over." Cole smiled. "The first time, I didn't know what I was promising. Didn't know what we'd face. Now I do. And I want to promise anyway. Promise specifically to stand with you through investigations and media circuses and family trauma and whatever else comes. To be your husband, not just in the good parts, but especially in the hard parts." Emma kissed him, long and deep and full of grief and hope and the particular flavor of love that comes from surviving something terrible together. When they pulled apart, she said, "Yes, let's get married. Again, for real this time." They did, 3 weeks later, at sunset, on a beach in San Diego, with exactly 4 people present: Emma, Cole, Emma's mother, and a justice of the peace they'd found through a simple online search. No hotel, no presidential suite, no history, just 2 people choosing each other with full knowledge of what that choice meant. Choosing each other with eyes open, with scars visible, with the weight of the past acknowledged but not in charge. Emma's vows were simple. "I promise to tell you the truth, even when it's ugly. To stand with you, even when it's hard. To build something new that isn't haunted by what came before." Cole's vows were simpler. "I promise to stay, through everything. I promise to stay." They didn't go on a second honeymoon. Didn't need to. Instead, they went home to Cole's apartment and ordered pizza and watched a movie and fell asleep on the couch like a normal married couple whose biggest problem was whether they'd remembered to pay the electric bill. The Hotel del Coronado sent them a letter 6 months later. It was from the new assistant manager. Cara had resigned, the note explained, to pursue other opportunities. The letter offered them a complimentary weekend stay, any room they wanted, any dates. To make amends for your difficult first visit, it read. Emma showed Cole the letter. What do you think? He studied it for a long moment. Then he tore it in half. I think some places you don't go back to. Some stories end. This one's over, Emma agreed. She took the torn letter and dropped it in the trash. Then she took Cole's hand and led him to their bedroom, small, cluttered with their combined lives. Nothing fancy or Victorian or presidential about it. Just theirs. Just real. The ocean was miles away, but Emma could still hear it sometimes in her dreams, could still feel the salt wind on her face, could still remember standing in that beautiful suite full of secrets, holding an envelope full of confessions, making the choice that had destroyed her father's legacy and started building her own. She'd learned something that night in the presidential suite. Learned that you can't choose your inheritance, not the money or property or genes or name, but you can choose what you do with it. You can choose to perpetuate the damage or to break the cycle, to hide the truth or expose it, to protect yourself or protect the people your family hurt. Emma chose exposure, chose truth, chose the hard, painful public reckoning. And in choosing that, she finally chose herself, finally became someone other than Elliot Carr's daughter, finally signed her own name to her own life, and made it mean something clean. The honeymoon had ended at the front desk, but the marriage, the real one, built on honesty and sacrifice, and the shared experience of surviving the truth, that marriage began there too, in a hotel lobby in California, with a reservation that had been manipulated, with secrets coming to light, with two people deciding that what they'd chosen in ignorance, they could choose again with wisdom, and that your deference, informed, clear-eyed choice made all the difference. If this story reached you, if it made you think about inheritance and truth and the weight of other people's choices, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do if you discovered your parents' dark secret? How do you balance loyalty to family with justice for victims? Leave a comment below sharing your perspective. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that dig deep into the complicated reality of human choices and their consequences. Like this video if Emma's journey resonated with you. Share it with someone who needs to know that you can break free from your family's past and build something new. Your story doesn't have to be your parents' story. You can choose differently. You can sign your own name to your own life.